Rudop cargo vessel Clan Mother's Curry. Jojorn leaned back in her creaking chair, reflecting even as her abdomen ached from the newest cycle. The biggest problem with interstellar travel wasn't the myriad of systems needed to move a ship at a significant fraction of the speed of light, nor was it the artificial singularity that formed the core component of the R-space generator that allowed these ships to travel between systems in as little as a day between any 2 points in the collective. The real problem was time alignment. For her ship, it was midday. For the A Twilight Rose, it was late evening. There had certainly been attempts in the past to align interstellar ships to a single unified time index. The most recent initiative had been stalled in committee since before Jojorn was born, as various species wanted some measure of accounting for their own local day-night cycle. The end result was that one of the first questions in ship-to-ship communications was, what time is it? Despite the mild annoyance at all the delays that had caused their ship to come in late, the crew gathered on the bridge to watch the challenge, as well as the Valantian commentary. Jojorn's nose was firmly pointed at Grisk, however she was left more than a bit confused as the cultural clash played out on their hollow. Finally, she turned her head slightly, keeping 2 pairs of eyes fixed on the recess recap of what had taken place thus far. Syphex, can you explain this? The engineering chief considered as she looked at the display. Not entirely. The Valantian way is similar to Herdop, but more a verbal fight born of their good fortune. La. Syphex spat dryly. Their planet is green enough to feed all those who live there. Silence reigned as they contemplated what was happening individually. When the dagger was grasped, there was a collective gasp on the bridge, even as they knew the outcome. They all glanced at each other, nodding collectively. He's a Freelord, but an odd one. Yorkime spoke finally, slightly confused. Why does he not simply kill his opponent? The question hung heavy before Helm Officer Bayolet spoke. He doesn't fear retribution? It could be a Valantian way. They leave their defeated alive. Syphex's voice was uncertain. "Not what the Great Lord told us." Bayolet looked around for confirmation. Jojorn made a hand motion more crossly than she'd intended. "No. It is his way. He will give his enemy food as he did for us. Freelords don't exist in Valantia. He seeks friends to support him." "Wondirain. What of the Great Lord's clan?" "Not our concern. Our concern is that we do our job and give the Freelord a warning. Bayolet, parking orbit. Tonight after dinner we will call the Freelord and pray he listens." "Norse?" Jojorn shook her head. Yorkime cleared his throat. "Captain, would it help if I went over to his ship as hostage?" "No. Also, remember Nhoot is at New Casablanca. You won't take her scent even if I was willing to part with my XO, which I am not." "No. Nay." Yorkime deflated even as the rest of the bridge giggled at his transparency, before he finally sat at his station and went over the communications. "Orbital control has granted high orbit clearance." "Good. We won't need to tax the engines leaving orbit. I suppose they think they're being insulting by making our lives easier." The ship fell into the rhythm of orbit as they took on the cargo they'd bid for. Jojorn looked over the numbers and frowned. The total they'd make on this would leave them with a profit of a few credits, if that. Yorkime put out a call to the Terrans advising that we are bound for Herdop and will carry items for a reasonable fee. The XO glanced back. "Captain? We have space in our hold, and an empty hold carries no profits. Make sure to look extra cute. Pretend you're confessing your feelings to Nhoot. The Terrans seem to like such things." "Dinty Hanny." Yorkime flushed again, but in short order was able to fill their cargo hold with seeds and chemicals for an experimental farm that was going to make an attempt at growing Terran seagrasses for food production. There was also an unusual request. A Valantian by the name of Velons, wishing to ferry himself, and a few possessions to whatever port they were bound for. Jojorn paused, calculated the fee and sent it back. It was curious to see that it was immediately accepted. Perhaps this could be a secondary source of income for them. Jo-Yorn considered that they'd probably have to get better food if they were going to branch out in such a way. Finally, the evening meal completed as they all filled up on bread and sea stew. Jo-Yorn paused before she grabbed a cup of wake plant tea with leaves that had only been steeped through twice previously. She had heard that Grizz was becoming fond of such odd things, and if she was being fully honest, she was as well. Her conversations with Kefab gave her a good window into who Grizz was, and devouring every piece of media she could get her nose into that mentioned him was also enlightening as to who he'd become. At some point she was going to have to find out what was in the adults-only section of the Terran fictions regarding Grizz. According to the file sizes and summary descriptions, that section seemed to hold details that she would desperately crave. She moved around in her chair again, finding every position uncomfortable, and looking at the clock that showed her ship's time next to that of the Dwight-Rose. Finally she stood and first made for the medical alcove, where Syphex bound a warm compress to Jo-Yorn's midsection without comment. Next, Jo-Yorn visited the cargo bay to visually cross-check the manifest, even though it had been done twice already. It was something to pass the time and keep the intrusive thoughts at bay. Finally, the speaker in the cargo bay crackled to life with Yorkim's voice. "Captain, A Dwight-Rose reports that it is their morning. I'll be on the bridge momentarily." Jo-Yorn scaled the ladder to the main deck and stalked forward, finally reseating herself and setting her tea and tablet into place. "On viewer, Yorkim." Jo-Yorn settled herself uncomfortably in the chair and willed her heart to beat with a steady calm as Grizz's image and scent appeared. Daijin Ha. Terran Foreign Legion ship at Dwight-Rose. Morning for Grizz did not bring comfort. The mood of the ship was bright and everyone who passed Grizz was in a fine humor. Over breakfast with Rosie and Tucker, the challenge was suspiciously absent from the conversation. Most of the conversation was in how the latest improvements and efficiencies could be allocated. While Grizz would have preferred the extra budget be delegated to shielding and life support, he did give Tucker control over half of it for an unspecified project that Tucker only referred to as a hell of a birthday present. Finally, he was able to settle with the morning bridge team, and nodded to Yomios as he set his tea in the cup holder. "Corporal, please hail the clan mother's curry and advise that it is morning now." There was a snap nod, and the image of Jo-Yorn appeared, along with her bridge crew. Grizz took a slight breath and winced inwardly. It seemed that Jo-Yorn was taking further steps to womanhood if her expression and scent tracked with Keoli and Grizz. "Captain, it has been too long." "Syphex as well." "Indeed she is, Freelord, despite her still mourning the loss of our engine singularity during the war. She believes she can prevent such a drastic event in the future." "When it do?" Jo-Yorn's voice was rough with the accents of Herdopla speech as she shifted forward slightly. "Let us hope we never have to find out." Grizz smiled softly, which seemed to bring some reaction from Jo-Yorn that Grizz was unfamiliar with. "But to business." Jo-Yorn shifted in her chair again, seeming uncomfortable. "Yes, I have a message and requests. One of our former allies from the Throne's Fortune messaged us before we left. He said you would recognize the name Theron, second to Freelord's fighter." "Nizan." Jo-Yorn made a warding gesture as she mentioned Svitr. "He says the words he had with Colin and Pramila were telling, and that he wishes a different life for the youth fleet ships under his command. He says that he will be in the Herdop system for another 2 weeks, and that there is a bar in Free Throne City, the Wounded Great Lord. He wishes to meet you there for an ale and a conversation. That is his requested price for this information. Whether you pay or not is up to you." "Nah. Why?" Grizz considered before nodding. "Very well. Continue." "Nee." Jo-Yorn shifted again, but her gaze never left Grizz as her voice changed subtly. "Theron says he scanned 6 ships from his former Freelord's fleet moving to patrol the jump point from Valantia. He says he queried them, and that they wish to take the blood of vengeance to your den. He has faith that you would win the battle even without foreknowledge, but he asks for mercy on their behalf. Take their letters of marque, and collect their bounties only. Leave their ships for the authorities to recover. Ellen Shiwanes. To what purpose? I can't say. Jojorn swallowed. I did not ask. But Theron was a wise second to the Freelord, so I presume he intends to mimic your success in some way, perhaps expanding his own fleet. He has a large number of youth fleet ships performing duties like ours. Grizg nodded. That sounds like a positive step. Thank you for this information, Captain Jojorn. You have been a welcome friend this day. No. Jojorn positively beamed at the praise. Of course. Freelord, would it be excessive to ask that we share a meal in the future? We are bound for Hurdop ourselves, and while I don't— She caught herself for a moment. While I do not know your itinerary, I would. There was a pause while she searched for something to say. I would like to meet your other daughter. I think we could make time for such a thing. We'll contact you when we see you in orbit of Hurdop Prime, Captain. His counterpart nodded vigorously. We'll be there as quickly as we can, Freelord. With that, the transmission ended, and Grizg found himself the recipient of amused looks from both Edwards and O'Brien, along with a curious look from Yomios, as she was apparently trying to gain further knowledge. There was a nod from Grizg to Hoban. Captain, verify our course and accelerate once we're clear of the debris fields. We need to make up some time. Isin, Mrao. Ha. Grizg looked between the sensor and tactical stations. You have a question? Edwards cocked her head slightly. You didn't catch that? Catch what? There was a rumble from tactical. Ye daft muppet. The lass fancies you. One Jimlin. Indeed hun. Atras shirts. Edwards added, If you'll recall, sir, Jojorn already met both your daughters. Note when the 57 did their run on us, and Grosel during the war. Grizz cocked his head. In fairness, the war was a chaotic time. She and her crew were in our conference lounge with Grosel. No way she'd just forget that, especially with you standing on the bridge being 1 part badass, and 2 parts awesome. Edwards verbally fired Grizg's denial out the airlock with a look of satisfaction. I assume you have suggestions. Grizg was rapidly becoming uncomfortable with the conversational turn. O'Brien leaned back thoughtfully for a long moment, her head canting slightly upwards. I got nothing. I mean, Hurdop kids are not anything like Terran bairns. She nodded toward the holo, which was currently displaying a map of the ships currently in orbit around Valantia. Terran kid at 13 says they want to go to space. In-system runs only, heavily supervised. Nothing dangerous that's not the dangers of space itself. Hurdop! They're tossing kids the keys and tell them to go ham. Maybe she's more grown up than I was at 13, but maybe not. Your wife be more fit to answer the question. When did you die? Yomios cleared her throat, not wanting to interrupt, but there was apparently something pressing. Her scent seemed distinctly uncomfortable with the topic. Sir, we have an urgent communication from Valantia. The clanords who are under Alafione wish a word. Grizz groaned softly before taking a sip of tea and standing from his command chair, tugging his shirt down slightly. Put them through. The holo resolved to images of 36 different nobles, as well as Alafiona's wives. Immediately they looked upward and intoned as one. Hail, great Freelord. Grizz tried not to be annoyed. This was in keeping with the clan way, but he spoke carefully. Please, I would speak to your eyes, and not your throats, lords and ladies. There was hesitation, but they all did eventually look toward the respective holo pickups before intoning in 40 voices. We are the hand that moves at your command. Grizg paused. And what if my command to you was to be free? That brought the lords and ladies to something they'd never expected. Finally, A single voice asked the question. How shall we be free, great Free Lord? This was going to be a more difficult than expected. Go and be who you want to be. Grizk's words prompted some crosstalk among the lords and ladies. Give us a sign. He has given us a sign. He has brought us to this place in life. This was not helping. Grizk waved his hands. No, I mean, did none of you ever dream or wish of being something else? The crosstalk began again. I dreamed of following the greatest of great lords, and I have, and now I do again. He is a great lord, I should know. I followed a few. Grizk tried being logical. I was not born a great lord. I'm a naughty, a great free lord. Dagdui, noi say, noi padme, I'll say, hadda. Lumiscus' voice was soft, but sliced through the conversation like a whispered blade through fine silk. I have been reading the words of the 11th generation. The words there say that only the greatest of lords have the gift of humility. He denies he is a great free lord. Therefore he is truly a great free lord. Warring. Grizk tried to counter this. But if I accept this, then... There was a chorus of voices talking over him. He accepts. He is truly the great free lord. He is. He is the great free lord. Grizk exhaled and inhaled slowly a few times. Please. I do not wish to be a lord or husband without proper actions to put truth to the claim. I wish to take proper scent of those who are sworn to me. I will make arrangements to return to Valantia as soon as I can, but, until then, cast yourselves to Minister Loreen. We are as one in stewardship of this great clan. Swear no other allegiances, but dedicate yourselves to looking for new things, new Lucia that can be folded in and made Valantian. Miri, Handhandar, Disio. He paused, looking at a readout. We are leaving communications range, and so I must go. I have high expectations that a clan grounded in the Clanway can read the old texts of the Clanway and apply them to the here and now. You will become guides to a new future, each in your own way, and that way begins with choice. Nan, now, Mishka. Where's... With that, Grizk nodded to Yomios, who disconnected the hollow. Hoban smirked, looking back at Grizk for a moment. How shall we fuck off, O Lord? He and the other two Terrans dissolved into snickers as Yomios looked between them, all in confusion. Terrans. Grizk's one word seemed to explain it sufficiently for Yomios, who gave a slight acknowledgement. The trip through the war debris was becoming easier with each trip as ships and scattered remnants of ships were continually being plucked from their individual orbits. A few dock ships were flitting here and there, scooping up metals and items that would be reforged into something hopefully worth the effort. Finally, the stars fled to be replaced by the blue and red smears of our space, and Grizk relaxed for several reasons. Mainly because the message traffic stopped, allowing Grizk to catch up on things and set replies to be sent once they emerged at the Herdop jump point. He dismissed the bridge crew from duty for 30 minutes so they could get some time to refresh and grab a snack before lunch. Grizk remained behind, checking his tablet. At precisely 11 a.m. by the ship's reckoning, Grozel emerged from her quarters in her uniform and stood straight before Grizk. Lieutenant Junior Grade Grozel is ready for inspection. Today she was wearing the company motto bear shirt and knee shorts with her shoes. Despite her serious look, her scent was filled with concern. Grizk looked her over seriously before nodding. You are the very image of a fine morale officer. He lowered his voice a bit. But you carry some concern. Grozel looked around a bit. I don't want 6 mommies. They were talking about it on the hollow before I fell asleep. That because you took their knife, you were taking everything including the great Lord Dum-Dum's wives. Neil, until you said. She paused. I like Mama and Mama Kiole, and we'd have to move. I don't want to move. Wouldn't. No. Grizk chuckled softly in spite of himself. Little one, I do not want them to be my wives in this way. There should be choice, and there are many who have a voice in this choice. You, Newt Mama, Mama Kiole me, and them too. Nush. But what if they want to? Then they will have to talk to all of us. I don't like Lumiska. She smelled bad. Netana. She did. But time can change many things. Like Lord Paphres. You remember how I met him. Grosel looked thoughtful. He said you fought. We did. But yesterday's enemy can be today's friend. But I have to want to be your friend first. Sorry, I'm sorry. This appeared to be very weighty to Grosel. Okay. She paused. But they're gonna have to be extra nice. With that, she left the bridge smartly to go find Jonesy and make the ship a better place. The bridge squad came back in slowly, with Yomios holding a small bag and looking both pleased and guilty, as her scent seemed to carry a faint odor of Uwekra. Grizz lifted an eyebrow slightly. Corporal, is there a concern I need to be aware of? Yomios's fur fluttered in a pattern. No. Hi. Sir. Tune. Jahan. Ogan. She kept going as Grizz remained silent. When we were on shore leave, I found a Terran shop that sold chocolate beans. Not like Monsilat chocolate, but acceptable. But I spoke with the cooks, and Uwekrup volunteered to learn how to make it. He doesn't like it, but he's very good at it, and her voice trailed off before she finished. I kissed his ear. Grizz leaned forward and sniffed. I don't like it either. Something about it seems off. Nein. He waved a hand. I won't forbid it unless it becomes a problem. The bridge doors opened again as the Terrans came in, and collectively stopped in their tracks. Edwards sniffed the air. Is that? Yomios clutched the bag to her chest protectively, looking to Grizz. Chocolate. Hoban nodded. Smells like Monsalat Royale or maybe Cote d'Or. O'Brien scowled. And you were going to tell us about Monsalat liking chocolate one? I thought you knew. I mean, you knew about Captain Joyorn crushing hard on the Major. Hoban spread his hands helplessly. For future reference, Captain, species that are chocolate fans falls in the category of shit we need to know. O'Brien settled into her station chair. Captain Wilson doesn't like chocolate on board. Says we'll get fat. Doesn't stop him from having 20 other pastries in the rotation along with Grezk's jelly cookies. Swear to Dagda I gained 5 pounds just looking at one of those. Now tea. Grizk shook his head absently. XO, please set a reminder. We need to allocate discretionary funds for Monsalat chocolate purchase. Done and dusted, Freelord Major. Is this a good time to remind you that we'll be hitting Herdop space during our night cycle? Rosie seemed amused at the exchange. Grizk nodded. We'll begin planning when the evening shift comes in.